But I'll start with showing you 5 statements. And as we go through those statements, I would like you to think about your frontline employees and whether they, not you, whether they would agree to those statements or not. Okay? So let's give it a go. First, when I make a mistake at work, I tell my team leader so we can learn from it. Think, would they agree with this? 2, errors are useful for improving the work processes. My managers frequently ask us what makes it difficult to follow the rules and procedures. My managers are honestly interested in what's behind non-compliance. And 4, 5, my managers welcome when people admit non-conformance. Okay, so from the laughs I hear that it may be not yet. Here's the thing. If your safety is improving, as in if your injury rates goes down, and if you rely on your on investigations to learn and prevent, then the fewer incidents you have, the fewer opportunities to learn you have. And then when you reach that golden 0, then you have 0 opportunities to learn, and that's the problem. And so with 0 comes a set of different challenges. Lagging indicators are no longer useful. You don't know how you're doing. And focusing on unsafe behavior is no longer useful or is no longer taking you further on that journey to reduce risk. And when I talk to leaders, they also often say that we've got nothing, 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 and then surprise, accident. But that is a repeat of something that we've had earlier. And later I'll show you why that may be and why our typical 5 whys and RCAs may not be good enough to prevent similar accidents. When things go wrong, it's easy to think that it went wrong because something failed. For example, somebody didn't follow a procedure or made an error. Similarly, if there is no accident, it is tempting to think that all procedures were followed, all controls were effective, all barriers were in place and working. However, when we look into how people complete their work when there is no accident, we see exactly the same things we see in the accident investigation reports. People skipping steps, dealing with wrong tools, working under the time pressure of not having enough time available, dealing with trade-offs and dilemmas and all sorts of resource issues. Because success and failure are very alike. Success look a lot like failure. And here is our first example. It's an illustration of a real situation. You see here a person crouching on a large lathe machine. In front of them, there is that big rotating part, rotating about once per second, so 60 RPM. And they're controlling the machine with 2 wheels with the right hand, and another wheel is behind them, not visible. And so when you look at it, you may interpret that situation in different ways. You can think of it, oh my gosh, this is absolutely unacceptable, this is completely unsafe. And so depending on how you interpret that situation, you will ask different sets of questions. Your attention will focus on some things and not other things. So you can see that as purely unsafe act that is worth of criticism and some sort of unpleasant actions stemming from there. Or you can see that as a form of adaptation. And if you think of it as an adaptation, then that begs the question, adaptation to what? So give me some thoughts. What do you think, if we use that lens of adaptation, what is this an adaptation to? Line of sight? Right, okay. So think of it. So that's a great point. in order to machine this piece precisely, they need to see the abrasive edge, and they need to, in order to control the edge precisely. If they look at from different angle, they may not see what they need to see, which then means that they may not be able to control the edge precisely, which means that increase the chances of quality defect, which then means that you've got cost, scrap, and all other consequences associated with that. So that's great. Give me one more example, what they may be adapting to. Right, so where the wheels are placed, which is a design of this equipment. And so if, for example, they try to stand in front of this machine, they may not be able to have that level of precision and control that they need. Or actually, although this looks unsafe, it may be the safest way possible. Because now if they stand in front of it, now do they have the rotating part closer or further away from their head? So any movement puts them closer or further away, closer. And so this is a form of adaptation. And so depending on your interpretation of that behavior, your questions will reflect how you think about it. And so I'll show you some examples of questions that we can ask to uncover what this is an adaptation to. So there are a number of different constraints. Here is a list of typical constraints that influence the choices that people have and create conditions that influence decisions. You know, one of the Hop principles is context drives behavior. The context is the situation you are in, and the situation you are in consists of those constraints. Constraints are all the things that constrain the choices that you have, and then increase the chances of error and non-compliance. So let's have a quick look at this video here. Okay, so the danger is evident. The person can get buried alive. But now I've got an easy task for you. At your tables, in 2 minutes, pick one of those constraints and try to come up with a realistic and plausible scenario in what way that constraint contributed to that situation. So I'll give you an example. Let's say training and onboarding. So this is the process, and it's not impossible that the training for this job was not there, and this person was never shown how to do this work, and so they're trying to do their best given the situation. So pick another one and try to articulate in what way that constraints create the context so that this way of work makes sense to that person at that time. 2 minutes. And we'll start with the conversations. How leaders ask questions makes a huge difference, and what they focus on makes a huge difference. And so here I'll show you some examples of questions that I unpack in my full training, but I'll show you some also psychological mechanisms underpinning that. So question number 1, what is getting in a way of completing this task? This question is based on the concept of barriers for success. So not why you're failing, but what is preventing you to succeed. Number 2, what makes this job difficult? Next 2, what do you need to be set for success, and what do you need to complete this task safely? Please note the shift in our attention is no longer here about my needs as a leader. So I, leader, need you to do X. We are moving beyond that, and now we are shifting to I'm here to listen to what you need, and then we'll partner up to try to resolve it, because you have a role and I have a role. Then we've got, what is the advantage of doing it this way? Super powerful question when it comes to dealing with undesired behavior. Like think about the guy crouching on the machine. If you ask, what is the advantage of you working in that position? then you would likely learn that, for example, I cannot see if I am standing next to it, and I cannot control the wheels with the precision I need if I'm not there. And finally, is tell me about situations when you need to deviate from procedures to complete the job. This question is based on the principle of performance variability, in that the conditions and constraints change and vary over time. And so if you're talking to the operator today things may be fine. But it was last Friday when they faced an issue that would really benefit from your help. And so you're asking about specific situations from the recent past.